So the next weapon that we have up for you guys today is going to be the autocannon build. The autocannon is designed to be an area direct hybrid style weapon. It's designed to have a large magazine capacity to it, fire rounds at a high rate of fire, and those rounds do splash damage. So for the gun stats, the gun deals 14 damage on direct damage and has a 1.4 meter radius where it deals an area of effect damage of 9 damage in addition to the direct damage. The gun has a magazine of 110 by default and a max ammo of 440, which means you have 3 reloads in it. You also have your movement speed slowed while you are using it, just like your minigun. This is the first weapon that is unlocked. It is the second of your primary weapons. It is unlocked when you hit level 10. The assignment mission is unlocked, I should say, at level 10 when you reach level 10 with your gunner. It also boasts the longest reload time in the game at 5 seconds. If you've ever wondered why the perk Born Ready is so heavily run, it's because of gun remains with the autocannon. The reload on this gun will make you want to commit non-living. I'm going to commit suicide. There are no direct comparison modifiers outside of simply this modifier, right? These two modifiers at tier 2 and tier 3. You have the choice between a +2 to your top rate of fire. You have 2 options for it. I personally do not recommend either of these options. It makes it so that the gun's top maximum rate of fire is faster, but the gun has a build up to its maximum rate of fire, very similar to the minigun. I don't recommend either of these modifiers. If you think that the rate of fire is relatively slow, I would run one of these based off your preference. At tier 1, we have the obvious choice between the expanded ammo bags or the increased damage. Now, this increase in damage only affects your direct damage. The increase in ammo gives you an extra 2 reloads. It gives you a bonus 50% ammo. And this is the thing I would primarily run, in my opinion. Now, if you do not want to reload the gun whatsoever, I highly recommend then the high capacity magazine, which means you only have to reload the gun 1 time. You have 440 ammo, and your magazine size is half of that. That being said, that's kind of like a meme build. You're not actually killing enemies any faster, nor are you able to kill more enemies. You simply just don't have to reload except once a mission. Personally, I'm going to take the expanded ammo bags. The extra ammo is too good to give up. Like, that's 50% more ammo. While the damage can be nice, it's not area damage. It's only direct damage. If it gave a bonus to the area damage as well, I would personally run that. At tier 2, we have a few options that are here. As stated before, we have the +2 to your top rate of fire. This means you fire 7.5 shots per second. That rounds down to 7, by the way. I don't like this. I think the rate of fire, I like it having a slightly slower rate of fire because it does take time for the individual shells to travel and hit, which means it saves the amount of ammo that you waste if you're just holding down the trigger. You have the improved accuracy. This reduces your spread by 30%. So at long range, you have a slightly tighter spread. Less of a bloom on your weapon. In my opinion, I'm not really a fan of this because this is a weapon that has area damage. So spread isn't necessarily an issue. If you are building this for straight direct damage, I would personally run the improved accuracy so that you can hit targets. In my opinion, the best modifier to run is the increase of max rate of fire. What this means is your gun will build to its maximum rate of fire much quickly. So even though you have a slower rate of fire overall, you are getting there faster. This is very similar to the spin-up modifier for the minigun. This is the key that I recommend. At tier 3, we have the aforementioned rate of fire increase. If you didn't pick it up in the previous tier, but you feel like the weapon is too slow, I would run that here. However, you do have 2 interesting options. You have another damage modifier. This is a +4 on direct damage. If you wanted the damage modifier for a direct damage build, you would run this. So if you wanted a direct damage build, you could do 21 damage per shot on a direct hit. Well, that is pretty good. I still prefer the extra ammo. Now, if you wanted to get more damage, you could do that as well. I personally take the increased splash damage. What this means is you essentially get almost an extra bullet's worth of damage in area damage. It goes to 11 damage on area damage. Now, the reason why I run this is there is no other modifier in your base kit to increase area damage. And I prefer to use this as sort of a crowd control style weapon. This is the modifier I take. Obviously, high velocity rounds there is pretty good. For your next tier, you have a larger effect radius on your rounds, or you have the armor break rounds. Now, this gives a massive boost into your armor break. This increases your armor break by 400%, takes up to 500%. This affects both your direct damage and your area damage. That's the main reason why I run it. One shot is enough to break any armor on the light armored enemies, and 2 shots is enough to break the armor on heavy targets. This gun absolutely melts and destroys Praetorians. I mostly run this one. If you are running a straight area of effect build, I would run the shrapnel rounds. Personally, I don't run those. Your last tier, which is supposed to be your mini overclock tier, is not particularly impressive in my opinion. First off, you have suppressive fire. What this does is that within the radius of your effect radius, okay, it's the same thing, you have a 50% chance per bullet to scare an enemy and fear them. That means they will run in a straight line away from that bullet's impact zone for 10 meters. This is a good way. This is similar to a stun effect in a sense. However, this is not a very good long-range weapon. Therefore, unless you are running a full area build, like with the extra meter, I would not run this modifier. You want the enemies to be coming at you and kill them as they come up to you. If you do use this at close range, obviously it like scatters the enemies away from you, but you're essentially going to be shooting at your feet. Also notice that this does not have to hit an enemy. You can just shoot the ground in front of you and get this effect off. So if you want a free 10 meter shield generator, this can work. Generally, however, what I would do is I would run either of these. So you have a 33% damage reduction at your maximum rate of fire, which again, both of these modifiers are going to pair very well with the reduced rate of fires. You want to have your weapons with a relatively low rate of fire and get to it quickly. If you're playing on higher hazards, you're going to want this. If you're playing on lower hazards, you're going to want this. The extra 10 damage, or 10% damage, means that you're adding an extra damage per shot. Now, this does affect your damage on direct and area, which is why I prefer it. But the damage reduction is pretty good. I'm usually shooting whatever's in my face anyway, so I'm not normally going to be running the damage reduction at full rate of fire. I also want to mention that the damage reduction does not work on fall damage. So if you attempt to jump off of a cliff and fire while you are falling, it is not going to save you on that. Mainly because unless you are like riding the rocket as it goes up and you fall all the way down, the chances of you getting to your maximum rate of fire and actually surviving off of that perk alone are not very good. So this is the primary build that I personally run. The high velocity build for massive direct damage is going to be this. If you want an area of effect crowd control build, you're going to want to run this. If you want kind of a meme build, you're going to run that. But personally, I'm not a big fan of running those modifiers. The gun works as a hybrid between an area of effect crowd control style weapon and a direct damage I kill everything in sight. Just putting my overclock on so that I'm able to have my build ready to go. In terms of weapons that it pairs well with, you can pair well with either of the secondaries. Generally, if you have a reload and a lot of enemies in your face, you're going to want to pair it with either of these options, just so you can quickly switch into something and do some damage, or you're going to run the Born Ready. In my opinion, this weapon would work a bit better if they removed maybe one of the rate of fire mods and gave it a reload modifier. Or they could take, perhaps, one of these mods in Tier 3, shove it into Tier 4, and put a reload overclock in, where you could have something like your maximum rate of fire cannot be increased. Your maximum rate of fire is something like, say, 3 shots per second. However, your reload speed has been reduced to like 3 seconds or something more reasonable than just, 5 seconds. Anyways, that is the build that I primarily run for the overclock, for the autocannon.